You're watching EAC News. Thank you for joining us. This morning, the National Assembly of Cambodia is starting its first plenary session for the 7th Legislature. All 125 lawmakers are arriving at the National Assembly at 8 a.m. to commemorate the historic event with a photo in front of the National Assembly building. The ceremony is being presided over today by King Norodom Sihamoni and attended by ambassadors of friendly countries. This will be the first time the king will open the National Assembly since 2013, as he was not present during the last session in 2018. The official election results of the 7th parliamentary election held on July 23rd show that the Cambodian People's Party controls 120 of the 125 seats in the National Assembly. For the first time in 5 years, another party gained seats, with the Royalist Funcinpec Party controlling the remaining 5. Both the CPP and Funcinpec have unanimously accepted the election results. Dr. Hun Manet has been appointed by the king as the Prime Minister to organize the cabinet of the 7th mandate of the National Assembly. Dr. Hun Manet will present his new Council of Ministers today, which will then be approved with a vote of confidence. With Hun Manet taking over from his father, his cabinet is made up of some new faces to the Cambodian public, many of whom are children themselves of outgoing ministers and officials. Of the 10 deputy prime ministers, only one will remain from the old regime. Meanwhile, only 6 out of 30 ministers are expected to keep their positions today. Many of the outgoing ministers have been offered seats as members of parliament for the National Assembly to make room for the next generation. Having been chosen by the CPP as the next Prime Minister in 2021, Dr. Hun Manet is expected to begin his term after the National Assembly convenes tomorrow. So today we are going to be watching the National Assembly's first session since it was formed on July 23rd. We're going over now to Anthony Ellis, who is at the National Assembly building. Anthony, good morning.
Good morning, Kristen.
So, Anthony, you are in front of the National Assembly building today. What's the atmosphere like there? Are people kind of milling in?
Yeah, well, as you said, it is a special occasion, an historic occasion today, after 38 years of the Prime Minister of Hun Sen being in charge now, handing over, and also having a new cabinet. Like you said, the CPP party will hold 120 of the seats, and the Funcinpec will hold the 5 seats. So it's a very historic day today. The atmosphere at the moment is pretty electric. We have a lot of reporters. Not just local, we've got reporters from Vietnam, we've got reporters from Thailand, so they come from all over the world. And as you can see behind me here, this is a front entrance into the National Assembly. Have the red carpet. Further down the road you can see some of the ministers turning up, and just behind me on the right side we have the National Guards and the National music guys, and at the moment now all the ambassadors are arriving. Well, I'm assuming all of them. We've already had the American, the Australian ambassadors just turn up, the Turkish ambassador, the Brunei. So quite a few of the ambassadors who will be here to witness and to see the new inauguration of the new National Assembly, and with the all the seats. As you said, the King will be here today, so it's a special occasion as he wasn't here last time.
Very good. So we see some special guests are arriving. Are there a lot of photo opportunities going on, or is it kind of very business, head inside and get to voting?
It's very business at the moment. You can see behind me here to the right all the cameras, and just in front of me as well there's probably hundreds of cameramen here. So the ambassadors are going just past us. The ambassadors are going just past us and walking straight in. So there is no photo opportunity, there is no opportunity to do anything. They're just basically getting dropped off, getting escorted into the building, and that's it. We see the British ambassadors just turning up now. But you can see all the cameramen just behind me and just in front of me as well. There would probably be at least 500-600 different cameramen, and from all over the world as well. I can see Vietnamese, Thailand, and a lot of Khmers. cameras here, some representative of the like routers and AFP.
All right, and then so you've been to a lot of official events, especially for the previous administration. Is there any different feelings going on today? Is it kind of the same in terms of security?
I'll put it here because it's the camera. Sorry, we've just been asked by security for my tag, so can you repeat the question again?
That's perfect. I was just asking about security at the event, and I'd noted that you'd been to a lot of official events in the past with the previous administration. So is there any difference in security and things like that?
Well, security is going to be extra high today because not only will we have the Prime Minister and the new Prime Minister, we're also going to have a king, we have a lot of ambassadors and everything else. We do have a security badge, and most times when we do attend these, we have a security badge. And of course, also being a foreigner, security is a little bit looked onto us a little bit more because make sure everything's above board. But yeah, we do have security. So the security is very high. And we're also at the National Assembly. So we have the new ministers and incoming new ministers coming in. So the amount of people and high delegates are here today. So security is probably extra high than normal.
Sure. And as you said, we're starting this new administration. Are you seeing any familiar faces?
Not at the moment. They're at the far corner way behind me here, at which I think they're waiting for the Prime Minister Hun Manet and the new incoming, the outcoming Hun Manet and Hun Sen to turn up, and of course the King will then take a photo in front of the National Assembly. So they're a fair distance, so I can't really see, but they have been turning up in the last 15-20 minutes just as the ambassadors have been coming.
Right, and can you tell us a bit about what we can expect to see at the National Assembly today for their first meeting?
Well, yeah, today as you will see the group photo at the front, then they'll go into the National Assembly, and then the new cabinet will then be sworn in, but not sworn in, so they would be told by the National Assembly where they'll approve it. And then this afternoon they will go to the Royal Palace where the King would then swear them in as new ministers.
All right. And can you tell us anything about any of the new ministers coming in?
Well, the new ministers coming in, as we know, they are, some of them are children from the ministers in it that that will retire today. So they will have a bit of experience in the ministry, and of course their fathers will then tell them what's happening with the ministries and explain to. So we don't know a lot. They were ex-Secretary of States and in high positions before to take up their new ministry. We do have, I think, 5 or 6 of the old ministers still staying in their position. From memory, Dick Tina, the Minister of Agriculture, and the Ministry of Arts, Pung Sakana, also from memory will be holding their positions.
And so we're getting footage now of the scene that you're at. It's looking very calm. I noticed in the past, couple of months we've talked to you. You've been at a lot of rallies and political campaigns and things. What's the difference in atmosphere?
Yeah, it is different. Even though it's a historic moment happening today, it's more calm. I think it's more official. As with the rallies, it's more vibe. There's more hype. But today, as it's going to be more official, so the people that have turned up so far, it's more laid back. It's just to be announcing the new cabinet, the new ministry there, and so it is a different atmosphere. It's more placid. It's more calm. I suppose before we had the SEA Games, the hype for the SEA Games, the Para Games, and then we had the elections, so there was a lot of vibe happening. So it's a completely different sort of atmosphere here. Like I keep saying, there is a lot of camera guys here, and they are from all over the world as well.
All right, and so this is all.
Things are going. And we've also got to remember the average age of a Cambodian is 27 years of age. They don't know any other leaders but the Prime Minister Hun Sen. And we also remember being a Prime Minister for 38 years. And to bring Cambodia from what it was 38 years ago, just come out of the Pol Pot regime, and then brought in the win-win situation where now the Cambodian GDP is one of the highest in Southeast Asia. So it's amazing what the Prime Minister in Southeast Asia. So it's amazing what the Prime Minister Hun Sen has done over 38 years. We can see we're on just where we are now. There's buildings all around us. My first time here 23 years ago, this part of Phnom Penh didn't even exist. But now we have Aeon malls and big shopping stores. We've got big buildings and everything else. So it is a historic moment. And with elections, we had a lot of observers. I think 333 observers international, and every one of them said that they felt the election was true. Everything was fine and above board. They didn't find anything that was not supposed to happen. There was no illegal activity. They didn't see any animosity with the people. Everything ran smoothly in their opinion. And we can see how things have been over the last 2 weeks since the elections, or actually nearly a month now. Everything's got back to order and everything else. So today the Cabinet will be then announced and officially been voted in, and also been sworn in by the King this afternoon. And then Hun Manet, the future Prime Minister, will also take over as Prime Minister. And the caretaker Prime Minister, Hun Sen, will then resign as the Prime Minister, but will then go for the President of the Senate and the King Consulate, where then, of course, he will be then take over when the King is not here in Cambodia. So there's some big major things happening over the next couple of days.
Yes, we've got a big couple of days coming up. It seems tomorrow Dr. Hun Manet will officially begin his role as Prime Minister.
Sure.
I see now we've just got Interior Minister Saw King arriving. So have the Prime Minister or future Prime Minister, are they there yet, or are we still waiting?
No, we're still waiting for them. Yeah, we've had a lot of the ambassadors have turned up already and still turning up. And just behind me, you can see there's a lot of the ministers in the cabinet is turning up, but neither of the Prime Minister Hun Sen or Prime Minister Hun Manet have turned up as yet. So we're just still waiting for them for their arrival, which I think is due about 8 o'clock this morning. So I think within the next 15 minutes, a lot of other delegates will arrive, and you can see behind me here, they've got the red carpet. Also, we've got the National Guards and the National Band. So it is a big historical event with them. Will greet the Prime Minister, and also for the King of Cambodia will also arrive.
Right, so we've got some very important dignitaries showing up today.
Yep.
Just looking, I see we've got Mein Sam An is also there.
I can't really see what's happening behind me 100% because everyone's behind me. But from what I can say, a lot of them are turning up. A lot of them are arriving. The security is very high here, like we did mention before. We have on the buildings, we've got the snipers and a lot of police and bodyguards and everyone around, because it is a lot of delegates will be here. We'll have the King, the two Prime Ministers, and then we have the National Assemblies here, then we'll have ministers here, then we'll have also ambassadors. All the ambassadors have been invited, and from what I've seen so far, a majority of them have already arrived. So the amount of dignitaries here this morning is pretty high.
Sure. Now, have you seen any members of the public around, or is it all very tight-lipped?
No, it's all pretty tight-lipped, but in saying that, have seen a couple of people straying through here not knowing what's happening. Obviously, lots of public, they may be doing tourists and staying in a couple of the hotels around this area, but the security is pretty strict here, so anyone walking around is being watched and making sure that everything is above board. Also, just about 10 minutes ago, talking to you on live, I'm not wearing my pass, and the security come up and made sure I had a pass, which I've kept in my pocket. And been scrutinised. Everything is being checked to make sure everything is above board. It is a big day.
We will get back with Anthony in a moment as things progress. The National Assembly of Cambodia is starting its first plenary session for the 7th Legislature this morning. All 125 lawmakers are currently arriving at the National Assembly, which is expected to begin at 8 a.m. They'll be commemorating this historic event with a photo in front of the National Assembly building. The ceremony is being presided over by King Norodom Sihamoni and attended by ambassadors of friendly countries. This will be the first time the King will open the National Assembly since 2013, as he was not present for their first session in 2018. The official election results of the 7th parliamentary election, held on July 23rd, show that the Cambodian People's Party controls 120 of the 125 seats in the National Assembly. For the first time in 5 years, another party gained seats, with the Royalist Phun Sinpec Party controlling the remaining 5. Both the Cambodian People's Party and Phun Sinpec have unanimously accepted the results of the election. Dr. Hun Manet has been appointed by the King as Prime Minister to organize the cabinet of the 7th mandate of the National Assembly. Today, he will present his new Council of Ministers, which must then be approved with a vote of confidence. With Hun Manet taking over from his father, his cabinet is made up of some new faces to the Cambodian public, many of whom are children of outgoing ministers and officials. Of the 10 deputy prime ministers, only one will remain from the old regime. Meanwhile, only 6 out of 30 ministers are expected to keep their positions today. Many of the outgoing ministers have been offered seats as members of parliament for the National Assembly to make room for the next generation. Having been chosen by the Cambodian People's Party as the next Prime Minister in 2021, Hun Manet is expected to begin his term after the National Assembly convenes tomorrow. So we are currently watching some dignitaries arrive. We've got foreign ambassadors from friendly countries with embassies in Cambodia arriving to observe today's meeting. It's going to be the first meeting of the National Assembly since the new 7th mandate was elected on July 23rd. So you see now we've got ministers, ambassadors, dignitaries, mostly Cambodian, some foreigners as well. We've got 125 lawmakers arriving today for the first time. So when we say it's the 7th mandate, Cambodia first formed its National Assembly in 1993, and they have elections every 5 years. So this will, on July 23rd, this past month, was the 7th time that Cambodians participated in an election. So when Cambodians get out to vote, they vote for a party rather than a person, and the party then appoints the leaders in the National Assembly. The future Prime Minister, Hun Manet, has appointed his cabinet, which will be approved today, and the CPP itself appointed Dr. Hun Manet. So we'll now just go to some footage of the arrivals at the National Assembly.
I can't hear anything. Not here. Okay. Oh, it's okay. Yeah. 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 Okay. At the moment here we're at the National Assembly, and we can just see in front of us where the ministers are awaiting arrival. The future Prime Minister Hun Manet has arrived, and now just watching and waiting for Prime Minister Hun Sen to arrive, and also the King. We can see on the left-hand side here we have the National Guards, and just behind them we have the National Band. I think now the arrival of Prime Minister Hun Sen could be just turning up now. And today is a special occasion. It's a historic occasion for Cambodia. Prime Minister Hun Sen, who has been the Prime Minister for 38. So we have the National Assembly President just arriving. See? Oh no, sorry, it is the Prime Minister Hun Sen has just arrived. And today is technically, even though he's the caretaker Prime Minister, today will be his last day. Tomorrow he'll be resigning and then handing over to the future Prime Minister Hun Manet. A very historic time here in Cambodia. As the average age of Cambodians are 27, so they don't know any other Prime Minister but Hun Sen. So we've still got more rivals now. We're just waiting to see who comes. So we can see all on the right-hand side there the new ministers that will be announced today, then voted in. And then this afternoon they will then go to the Royal Palace, where they will then get sworn in by the King. The King is also due to turn up here. Today is the first time that he's been here since, I think, 2013. So we're just waiting for the King to arrive. Both Prime Ministers, Prime Minister Hun Sen and Hun Manet, have already arrived now with the new cabinet of ministries there. And then what will happen is the King will arrive. They'll walk up the red carpet to the front of the stairs, where the photo will be taken with all the National Assembly members and the King and the Prime Minister Hun Sen and Hun Manet, before they'll go inside and sit for their first seat of the National Assembly. We can see the National Assembly is done up very nice today. National Guards and the National Band all here, waiting for the King to arrive now any moment. At the moment we have international reporters here as well, so we've got maybe about 400 or 500 different reporters. Of course we have a lot of Cambodians, and we have people from Vietnam and Singapore and the States, so there is a lot of people that have come to do the news from all over the world. The ambassadors have already arrived. From what we can see, they've all turned up, and then they'll be a witness to the ceremony today of the National Assembly to a confidence vote of the new ministers. And so it's a historic last couple of days. As we know, the elections were held just 20 odd days ago, where the CPP had won 120 of the seats. The Funsipik party had won 5 of the seats. 2018, where the CPP party had 125 seats. So you can see how things are changing here in Cambodia. So if we can see the Cambodian going forward, we've seen the Prime Minister who's been in charge of Cambodia for 38 years as Prime Minister, and we've seen a lot of changes from when he first took over 38 years ago as Prime Minister. Looks like we might have the King is arriving now, and then we'll see the ceremony of the King walking down the carpet. He'll be greeted by the Prime Ministers, the caretaker Prime Minister Hun Sen and the future Prime Minister of Cambodia, Hun Manet. The King is just arriving now, it looks like. So
we are watching the first plenary session of the National Assembly being held today for its 7th mandate. We've already seen some foreign ambassadors. I've noted the American ambassador, the British ambassador are in attendance. We've just had current Prime Minister Hun Sen showing up on his final day as Prime Minister. His son, Dr. Hun Manet, is expected to take over tomorrow. So we've got some very important dignitaries presiding over the National Assembly today, including Prime Minister Hun Sen, Prime Minister Hun Manet. King Norodom Sihamoni is expected to arrive at any moment. We've got members of the outgoing cabinet coming in. I've noted Mang Sam An. We've got Interior Minister It Samheng. And currently arriving is Sai Chum. Yes. So we see here the Prime Minister with his current cabinet members who will, for the most part, be getting replaced today. Many of them have been offered seats in the National Assembly to make room for the next generation. So we're going to, today, the National Assembly is going to have a vote of confidence on the new Council of Ministers that have been appointed by upcoming Prime Minister Hun Manet, who is expected to take office tomorrow. So we see people kind of filing in, getting ready. In the back there are the ambassadors, and these are the National Assembly members. Many of the National Assembly members are new in their roles as well. On July 23rd, Cambodians voted for a party rather than a person. And so with the Cambodian People's Party receiving majority of the votes, they have appointed 120 National Assembly members from many different provinces. There's different representatives for different provinces, of which there are 24 plus Phnom Penh capital. So for many of them, this will be their first day on the National Assembly, but we're seeing some old faces as well. And some of the cabinet members from the current cabinet under Prime Minister Hun Sen will also be taking seats in the National Assembly. So the National Assembly of Cambodia is starting its first plenary session today for the 7th Legislature. Since 1993, this is the 7th session of the National Assembly. So all 125 lawmakers are arriving now to commemorate the historic event. They will take a photo in front of the National Assembly building once everyone has arrived. The ceremony is being presided over by King Norodom Sihamoni and attended by ambassadors of friendly countries. This is the first time the King will open the National Assembly since 2013, as he was not present in 2018. The official election results of the 7th parliamentary election held on July 23rd show that the Cambodian People's Party controls 120 of the 125 seats in the National Assembly. So for the first time in 5 years, another party gained seats, with the royalist Funcinpec Party controlling the remaining 5. Both the Cambodian People's Party and Funcinpec have unanimously accepted the results of the election. Dr. Hun Manet has been appointed by the King as Prime Minister to organize the cabinet of the 7th mandate of the National Assembly, which will be approved today. He will present his new Council of Ministers, which must then be approved by a vote of confidence. So with Hun Manet taking over from his father tomorrow, his cabinet is made up of some new faces to the Cambodian public. many of whom are children themselves of outgoing ministers and officials. Of the 10 deputy prime ministers, only one will remain from the old administration. Meanwhile, only 6 out of 30 ministers are expected to keep their positions today. Many of the outgoing ministers have been offered seats as members of parliament for the National Assembly to make room for the next generation. So that does include, or doesn't include, but Prime Minister Hun Sen, while he will be resigning his position tomorrow, has announced plans to take over as president of the Senate. So the National Assembly is one of the legislative bodies of Cambodia. The other is the Senate. So that is their legislative branch. Then you've got the executive branch, will be led by Dr. Hun Manet, who is expected to take over tomorrow. And they also have the judicial branch here in Cambodia. So the National Assembly today is starting its 7th legislature this morning. It means since 1993, Cambodia has had 7 elections that are held every 5 years. This is the 7th mandated National Assembly that's been formed. So we're going to see a mix of old faces and new faces, and they'll be voting today on Dr. Hun Manet's new cabinet members. The official election results of the 7th parliamentary election which were held on July 23rd, showed the Cambodian People's Party controlling 100 of the 125 seats in the National Assembly. So we currently have on our screen Minister Itsam Heng arriving. Heng Samrin. Sorry, we have Heng Samrin arriving. And he'll be joining the other dignitaries alongside Prime Minister Hun Sen. And we've got Meng Sam An. So Heng Samrin is the current president of the National Assembly. He will be assumedly resigning his position today, along with many. Prime Minister Hun Sen has noted his intention to turn over power to the next generation and has offered many of his ministers positions in the National Assembly. So he says they're making room for the next generation in order to maintain peace and stability for Cambodia. So having been chosen by the CPP as the next prime minister in 2021, Hun Manet is expected to begin his term as the National Assembly convenes tomorrow. Now, today, the National Assembly will also be voting on a new president for the body, a new president and a vice president. The first woman president is expected to be put in place as the president of the National Assembly today. She'll be the first woman to head it. And they'll also be inaugurating a vice president for the National Assembly. The ceremony is being presided over by King Norodom Sihamoni and attended by ambassadors of friendly countries. This is the first time the king will open the National Assembly since 2013, as he was not present in 2018. The official election results of the 7th parliamentary election, held on July 23rd, show that the Cambodian People's Party controls 120 of the 125 seats in the National Assembly. For the last 5 years, they have controlled all 125 seats, in addition to all seats in the Senate, and having a CPP member leading as Prime Minister. So this term, Royalist Party Phun Sinpec, who is one of the older, more established parties in the country, has 5 seats in the National Assembly, which is a shift from the last 5 years in which the Cambodian People's Party held all of the seats. So with Hun Manet taking over from his father, his cabinet is made up of some new faces to the Cambodian public, many of whom themselves are children of outgoing ministers and officials. Of the 10 deputy prime ministers, only one will remain from the old regime. So we've got Anthony Ellis on the scene now. Hello, Anthony.
The president. Hi, Christian. How are you?
Hi. Tell us what's going on.
As you mentioned, the president of National Assembly and has already arrived. and also the President of the Senate. So we're just waiting now for the King arrive. They're both Prime Minister Hun Sen and the future Prime Minister Hun Manet have also arrived. You can just see behind me here is where they'll take a photo for the ceremony as soon as the King arrives. So the King will then take a photo with all the new ministry, which will then go inside to then vote to make sure that everything is above board, where they'll be elected the new ministries before they'll go to the royal palace to be sworn in.
Right, and then I've noticed we've been watching on the screen some of the dignitaries that have arrived. Have you noticed some of the ambassadors that have showed up from which countries?
Basically, from memory, we did see the American ambassador, Australian ambassador, the British ambassador, North Korean ambassador. So also members of the UN have also turned up as well. So the majority of ambassadors have already arrived, which were escorted in a different entrance. So they're already inside the National Assembly because they'll witness today the new voting for the ministry. So yeah, majority from what I did see, most of the ambassadors are already here, including French.
Good, and I've noticed I'm not seeing, a sea of suits. I'm actually seeing a lot of different dress. Have you noticed more kind of Western dress versus Eastern dress for some of the dignitaries showing up?
From what I've seen in dignitaries, a lot of them actually in traditional clothes. So we did see also the Prime Minister Hun Sen turn up with the white top, and of course the President of the National Assembly also turn up. So this is all their national dress code for these sort of ceremonies.
Yeah, it looks really nice and like a shift from, just a sea of black suits. It's nice to see.
Yeah, well, I think they're looking at their more traditional stuff now because, it's a historic moment. So the National Assembly will sit for the first time since elections, and of course a new ministry. So it's first time it's been elected with new ministers, so many over the last 38 years. It's sort of the one or two that have been replaced, but this is almost a whole new cabinet. We have 120 of the CPP parties this year compared to, I think last time was 2013, where we have 5 from the Funisik party representing another party, not just the CPP, at the National Assembly. So today's going to be a historic day.
Good, thank you, Anthony. So we'll be back. We're currently waiting for the King to arrive at the National Assembly for its first plenary session of the 7th Legislature this morning. All 125 lawmakers are arriving, or presumably have arrived, in addition to current Prime Minister Hun Sen, future Prime Minister Hun Manet. The National Assembly President Heng Samran has arrived. We've got Minister of Interior there. So a lot of the old regime is here, waiting on King Norodom Sihamoni to arrive. He'll be presiding over the National Assembly plenary opening session for the first time since 2013. He was not present for it in 2018. So this year, or this election, Funsimpec, the Royalist Party, actually did win 5 seats out of the 125. While the Cambodian People's Party is holding on to 120 of the 125 seats. So Dr. Hun Manet today will be presenting his new Council of Ministers, which must then be approved by a vote of confidence. And with Hun Manet taking over from his father, his cabinet is made up of some new faces to the Cambodian public, although many of them are children of outgoing ministers and officials, so not completely new to politics. Many of them have served as secretaries of state and have kind of been training for the role already. So only about 6 of the 30 ministers are expected to keep their positions today from the old administration, moving forward in the new administration. So every 5 years, Cambodia holds an election to nominate a party, which then nominates members of the National Assembly, which ultimately approves the Prime Minister. So we're watching now outside. The members, once everyone has arrived, they'll step outside for a photo. So today they're having their first meeting as the 7th Legislature. You see there we've got some of the foreign ambassadors. The ambassador from Cuba is there as well. Also, Anthony told us we've got members of the UN who are attending today. So everybody's in their finest white. It's the traditional kind of formal color at Cambodian formal events. You'll often see a lot of white. So there are 3 female ministers expected to be in the new cabinet, including the current Minister of Culture and Fine Arts, Pung Sakuna. So she is expected to stay on in her position. And then there's 2 additional women who are going to be ministers. One of the women is Chamit Mul, who is the daughter of the Minister of Commerce. She will be taking over as Minister of Commerce herself. The Minister of Women's Affairs, Ongkona Pawe, and then Pung Sakuna. Those are going to be the 3 women in the cabinet of 30, only one of which is returning from the previous administration. Now, we do have a female minister from the current, from Prime Minister Hun Sen's cabinet, Mang Sam An. She is going to be leading she'll be taking other roles in the government, leading kind of women's affairs committees. We see there we're going to have the first female president of the National Assembly, who's expected to be sworn in today, taking over from Heng Samran, who has arrived and has joined the Prime Minister, current Prime Minister Hun Sen. So we've got 125 lawmakers who have arrived at the National Assembly to commemorate the historic event with a photo today. Let's see, everybody's just kind of waiting for the king to arrive. This is the first time that the king will be presiding over the ceremony since 2013. So first time in 10 years, the king will be opening the National Assembly. He was not present for the opening session held in 2018. So Cambodia did have the elections last month on July 23rd. The election results showed the reigning Cambodian People's Party holding 120 out of the 125 seats, with Royalist Phun Sin Pek controlling the remaining 5 seats. Now, there were 18 parties on the ballot, but those were the only 2 that got enough votes to hold a National Assembly seat. Many of the parties that were on the ballot were only established in maybe 2015, 2016, but Phun Sin Pek has been around since at least the early 90s. It has been very much a long-term party in Cambodia. So this term they will be having 5 seats in the National Assembly. Now, previously, the Cambodian People's Party held all 125 seats based on the 2018 elections. So having been chosen by the Cambodian People's Party as the next Prime Minister back in 2021, Dr. Hun Manet is expected to begin his term as the National Assembly convenes tomorrow. He will be the first new Prime Minister in over 38 years for Cambodia. The average age of Cambodians is 27, so many Cambodians have never known a different Prime Minister than Hun Sen. He has been leading the country for over 38 years. And he has announced 3 days actually after the election that he would be resigning his position in the name of peace and stability. to hand over to his son, Dr. Hun Manet, who was nominated by the CPP as the prime minister in waiting, essentially. It was actually a surprise announcement. Prime Minister Hun Sen had previously said that that transfer would not happen until at least 2028, but he has decided to resign his position today, and Hun Manet will be taking over tomorrow. So today Hun Manet will be presenting his council of ministers that he has arranged and submitting them for approval. There's a lot of new faces coming in with the cabinet, a lot of younger faces. But a few people are sticking around from the previous administration. But largely it will be new faces in the cabinet, many of whom are children of current officials, will be taking over their parents' role. They've presumably been trained for it. There's also some turnover going on at the National Bank of Cambodia, who's got a new governor now. And she just took over from her father, who was governor of the National Bank. So a lot of turnover going on within positions of power in Cambodia. Members of the former cabinet are being offered seats in the National Assembly, largely. So they're not going to be disappearing altogether from Cambodian political life. Prime Minister Hun Sen himself has noted that he intends to be president of the Senate come February of 2024. So he will still very much be present. He'll also be the president of the Supreme Council for the King, which actually means that he kind of takes over authority when the king leaves the country, which isn't often. Prime Minister Hun Sen is also president of the Cambodian People's Party. So he'll still be making quite a lot of decisions, and he has been very open about the fact that he's not going anywhere. He'll just be in a new role now, while his son, Dr. Hun Manet, takes over as prime minister. So, got unusually good weather for the rainy season this morning. Doesn't look to be any signs of rain. It's been kind of a cool morning. Let me see. Got a band and members of the armed forces lined up to welcome the dignitaries. And everyone is very eagerly awaiting the arrival of King Norodom Sihamoni today. He'll be presiding over the opening ceremony, and we'll be taking a picture with all of the new members and presumably some of the old members of the National Assembly and of Prime Minister Hun Sen's cabinet. We have seen Hun Sen is arrived and waiting with members of his cabinet, including the National Assembly President, current National Assembly President, Heng Samran. See, now looks like they're all rising to welcome the king. So the National Assembly of Cambodia is starting its first plenary session for the 7th Legislature this morning. All 125 lawmakers have arrived at the National Assembly, and they are currently waiting for the arrival of King Norodom Sihamoni, who it appears could be, yes, that's him. So the king has just arrived. He's being greeted by current Prime Minister Hun Sen and members of his cabinet. So you see they're giving very warm greetings. That is the Royalist Funsimpec Party is controlling the 5 seats out of the 125 that are in the National Assembly, while the CPP will be controlling 120 of the remaining seats. Both CPP and Funsimpec have accepted the results of the election. So today, future Prime Minister Hun Sen will present his new Council of Ministers, which will be approved by a vote of confidence from the members of the National Assembly. So many of the new cabinet is made up of children of outgoing ministers and officials. Of the 10 deputy prime ministers, only 1 will remain from the old administration. Meanwhile, only 6 out of 30 ministers are expected to keep their positions today. So there's definitely some shuffling of power going on to make room for the next generation. Hun Manet was chosen by the CPP as the next prime minister in 2021, and he's expected to begin his term officially tomorrow after the National Assembly convenes. So we've got the king arriving. This is the first time he's presiding over the opening ceremony of the National Assembly since 2013, so it's been 10 years since he's attended such. You see now he's been eagerly awaited. He's arrived, kind of the final dignitary to arrive for the proceedings today. So the National Assembly of Cambodia is starting its first plenary session for the 7th Legislature this morning. You see there we've got Prime Minister Hun Sen, King Norodom Sihamoni, members of the cabinet. The ceremony is being presided over by the king and attended by ambassadors of friendly countries. We've seen the Australian, UK, American ambassadors are all there, members of the UN. So this is the first time in 10 years that the king is presiding over the opening ceremony of the National Assembly. Well, this is the 7th time that a National Assembly has been convened. Since 1993, Cambodians hold elections every 5 years. And the previous election in 2018, we saw the CPP win all 125 seats in the National Assembly. So this year, Funsimpec, which is a royalist party who's been around for a very long time, it's a well-established party, they've got the remaining 5 seats. So Dr. Hun Manet will be taking over from his father tomorrow. His cabinet is made up of a lot of new faces, many of whom are children of outgoing ministers and officials. A lot of those outgoing ministers and officials have been offered seats on the National Assembly, while current Prime Minister Hun Sen will be taking over, presumably, as President of the Senate come February 2024. The Senate is not elected by members of the public. It is elected by officials, party officials, government officials. So they are expected to nominate and confirm Prime Minister Hun Sen as the President of the Senate. So that is one of 2 bodies in the legislative branch in Cambodia. So you've got the National Assembly is based on votes from the public who vote for a party. The party then nominates members for the National Assembly. The Senate, meanwhile, is voted on by fellow officials. So we are currently watching the opening of the 7th National Assembly. They are convening for the first time today as the new legislative body. This will be the 7th National Assembly since 1993, which is voted on every 5 years. So every 5 years, Cambodians vote for a party, which then fills the seats in the National Assembly. So this is the first time this kind of group of National Assembly members will be meeting as an official legislative body. It's going to be presided over today by King Norodom Sihamoni, who has just arrived. This is the first time he'll be presiding over an opening ceremony in 10 years. So Dr. Hun Manet has been chosen by the CPP as the next prime minister back in 2021. And he is expected to present his new cabinet today for approval. His new council of ministers, of which there are 30. About 6 of those 30 will be coming from the previous administration, while essentially everybody else will be new ministers. So this is a big shift from Prime Minister Hun Sen and his cabinet, many of whom have held their position for decades. We've now got, we're heading back to Anthony Ellis, who is on the scene at the National Assembly. Anthony, can you hear us?
There, Kristen.
Hi, Anthony. I see the king has just arrived.
Yeah, that's correct. As you saw, the king arrived, and as he walked along the red carpet, the Prime Minister Hun Sen and the President of the Senate and the National Assembly followed him along as they entered the National Assembly building. Apparently, they'll come back out again in a minute to have their group photo.
All right, so I noticed the king was greeted by a lot of dignitaries. Did you notice any of the important people that were there to welcome him?
The President of the National Assembly, the President of the Senate and the Prime Ministers were there, and some of the ministers were there as well, and the future ministers there to greet him. And he didn't stay out here for long. He come and just walked through the carpet, and he'll go inside now for a few minutes, and then they'll their photo. So there was a lot of dignitaries, and there's a majority of the dignitaries are already in the National Assembly building as well.
Oh, okay. Now, I think I did hear you say that Hun Manet had arrived. Is that true? I haven't seen him.
Yes, he arrived before the Prime Minister Hun Sen. So, yes, he was there in the sea of people there. Because there was a lot of dignitaries there at one stage, and of course, and then you would have seen him walking along through there. He might have already entered the building before the king. I'm not 100% sure, but he did arrive.
Okay, very good. So, have you noticed any shifts in kind of the energy that's going on there since the king has arrived?
Not really. It's still the same with the cameramen and reporters. Just move positions. It's a little bit of a different atmosphere here. People are excited because of the situation with the new members coming on board, having the king first time since 2013 attend the National Assembly. So it is a big moment, but everyone is still pretty calm. All waiting for that photo here as well. So it's just different from what we had with the SEA Games and of course the elections time.
Right, so the elections wrapped up in July. And can you tell us a little bit about the outcome of those?
Well, you're right. The elections were the 23rd of July, so just under 4 weeks ago. where the CPP party had won by a landslide of, I think, just over 6 million had voted for out of the 8 million votes. Just over 8 million votes voted for the CPP, which is about 82% voted for the CPP. Then Foon Sipik Party, which gained 5 seats, I think with just over 700,000 votes. So I think it was an historical outcome. As we know, 2018, the CPP party had won 125 of the seats, so this year with 120. We had over 330 observers attend to the elections this year, and we had the president of Guinea-Bissau. We've had a Senate for America. So we had some big delegates arrived, even a Senate from Pakistan. So they were represented. The observers were represented from the high positions, and of course we had people from Russia, China, some from all over the world to watch these and observe the elections. And the outcome of all the observers saying it was fair, it was transparent, everything seemed above board. There was no hassles, no troubles. They didn't see that anything was wrong. So all the positive vibes come from the observers, all the positive feedback. It was a great outcome for the elections of July 23rd.
Right.
And also, as you mentioned, Kristen, earlier on, the CPP party had put Hun Manet as the future Prime Minister, which was voted anonymously at the CPP party. Then it was put to the National Assembly, and once again it was voted, and everyone, and the president of the Foon Sipik party is also happy with the outcome of the future Prime Minister Hun Manet.
All right, so Hun Manet is expected to introduce his new Council of Ministers today. Do you know anything about the ministers that will be coming in?
Well, I think there's about 5 or 6 still keeping their same positions. Memory, we have the Minister of Agriculture, Ditina, is still continuing, and the Minister of Fine Arts, Hung Sakana, is also going to hold their same positions. So there is a lot of new, as you said earlier on, the Prime Minister is like bring in a new and start a new Prime Minister, new cabinet, and everything to start a new future of Cambodia, bring a younger group of people to come through. So I think there's some exciting times to come a bit further on down in the future of Cambodia, with kind of a new breed, a new younger generation who are up to date with the new technology. You've got AI, which is booming all around the world now, GPT, and all these new things that are happening. So it seems to be a great decision from the Prime Minister Hun Sen, is to allow a new breed, a younger breed, to come up through Parliament and start the future of Cambodia in the...
All right, and so Hun Sen will be resigning as Prime Minister today, presumably. And are we going to be seeing more of him?
Well, yes, as you mentioned, this is 38 years in the making, so to speak. He's one of the oldest and one of the longest Prime Ministers in history to hold that position. He's not given up politics 100%. He will run further, become the President of the Senate. The King also signed a decree where he will then take over. So when the King is not in Cambodia, he will then take over as the course in here in Cambodia. So no, he's not taking a step away from politics. He'll just be in the background. He also mentioned if something does happen and if Hulmanet has problems, he'll have no problems to step up any time.
And we've heard a bit from Cambodians. We've done interviews and things like that. What do you gauge as the general feeling of this new administration?
They're all saying they're happy with the outcome. They were happy with what happened in the elections, and they're looking forward to it because they've kind of seen the upbringing of Hulmanet. As we know, he studied at the as a cadet in America
At West Point.
So yeah, West Point, and then I think he went into England and studied more. So the average Cambodian is 27 years of age. So they've kind of grown up with him as like a brother sort of figure. So they do know, and over the last 12 months, the amount of work that Hulmanet has done for the CPP party, also the youth of the CPP. So they're happy to see him take over as Prime Minister and to see the next part of the future. What is going to happen? Cambodia has grown so much over the last 10 years. We went through COVID-19, unfortunately, which affected the whole world. But Cambodia bounced back as one of the fastest countries to get out of COVID-19. The GDP is still up there. So there's still a lot of improvements to come. We can see just behind me the National Assembly, all the new building, and the economy is looking up. It is a slow process, but I think it did affect through COVID-19. So people are happy to see Hulmanet come up as Prime Minister and are looking forward to the challenges that he'll face and to make things better in the future.
Yes, it's a big
we're going
change
to cross
for
over.
Cambodia.
I think the King's going to do a speech.
We're getting a speech from
inside
the
the National Assembly, I think. So that's the word I'm getting. So we might go back over and listen what's happening.
All right. Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you, Kristen.
The National Assembly of Cambodia is holding its first plenary session of the 7th National Assembly today. We are currently on the scene. The King has just arrived, so we are currently waiting. He's presumably going to give a speech, and then 125 members of the newly formed National Assembly will gather for a photo with the King, with Prime Minister Hun Sen, presumably with Prime Minister. ទូរទស្សនិកជនជាទីគោរពនិងជាទីមេត្រីតាមរបៀបវរៈនៃកម្មវិធីដែលបានបង្ហាញជូនពីសំណាក់រដ្ឋសភាបានបង្ហាញឲ្យឃើញថាព្រះរាជសកម្មភាពដ៏ឧត្តមឧត្តមនៃព្រះករុណាជាអង្គម្ចាស់ជីវិតលើត្បូងជាទីគោរពសក្ការៈដ៏ខ្ពង់ខ្ពស់បំផុតព្រះអង្គកំពុងតែស្ដេចយាងថ្វាយកម្រងផ្កាថ្វាយបរមរូបព្រះបាទជ័យវរ្ម័នទី7ដែលបានតម្កល់នៅក្នុងវិមានរដ្ឋសភាជាទីសក្ការៈបូជានៃមន្ត្រីថ្នាក់ដឹកនាំនៅក្នុងរដ្ឋសភាដែលព្រះបរមរូបព្រះបាទជ័យវរ្ម័នទី7នេះគឺជាមហាវីរក្សត្រដ៏អង់អាចក្លាហានសម្រាប់ការចូលរួមការពារបូរណភាពទឹកដីក៏ដូចជាការពារប្រជារាស្ត្រខ្មែរពីសម័យអតីតកាលជាពិសេសនោះគឺនៅក្នុងសម័យអង្គរដ៏រុងរឿងនៃយើងទូរទស្សនិកជនជាទីគោរពនិងជាទីមេត្រីបន្ទាប់ពីព្រះករុណាជាអង្គម្ចាស់ជីវិតលើត្បូងស្ដេចយាងថ្វាយកម្រងផ្កាព្រះបរមរូបព្រះបាទជ័យវរ្ម័នទី7រួចមកព្រះអង្គសពព្រះរាជហឫទ័យស្ដេចយាងមកកាន់សាលប្រជុំនៃវិមានរដ្ឋសភាហើយមុននឹងយាងដល់សាលប្រជុំព្រះករុណាជាអង្គម្ចាស់ជីវិតលើត្បូងស្ដេចយាងបូជាទៀនធូបក៏ដូចជាបូជាផ្កាយ៉ាងល្អស្រស់ថ្វាយព្រះពុទ្ធរូបដែលបានតម្កល់ជាទីគោរពសក្ការៈដ៏ខ្ពង់ខ្ពស់នៅក្នុងវិមានរដ្ឋសភាដ៏ថ្កើងថ្កាននៃយើងព្រះរាជសកម្មភាពដ៏ប្រពៃថ្លៃថ្លានៃព្រះករុណាជាអង្គម្ចាស់ជីវិតលើត្បូងនៅក្នុងឱកាសនេះគឺជានិមិត្តរូបនៃឯករាជ្យជាតិជានិមិត្តរូបនៃនិរន្តរភាពជាតិ
ដោយមានចែងនៅក្នុងរដ្ឋធម្មនុញ្ញនៃព្រះរាជាណាចក្រកម្ពុជាដែលបានចែងថាព្រះមហាក្សត្រគឺជានិមិត្តរូបនៃឯករាជ្យជាតិនិងនិរន្តរភាពជាតិព្រះមហាក្សត្រទ្រង់ជាអ្នកធានាឯករាជ្យជាតិអធិបតេយ្យនិងបូរណភាពទឹកដីនៃព្រះរាជាណាចក្រកម្ពុជាទ្រង់ជាអ្នកធានាការគោរពសិទ្ធិនិងសេរីភាពរបស់ប្រជាពលរដ្ឋនិងការគោរពសន្ធិសញ្ញាអន្តរជាតិទូរទស្សនិកជនជាទីគោរពនិងជាទីមេត្រីនៅក្នុងឱកាសដ៏វិសេសវិសាលនាវេលាព្រឹកថ្ងៃទី21ខែសីហាឆ្នាំ2023នេះគឺជាព្រឹត្តិការណ៍ដ៏មានអត្ថន័យជាប្រវត្តិសាស្ត្រសម្រាប់ដំណើរឈានឡើងរបស់ព្រះរាជាណាចក្រកម្ពុជាស្របទៅតាមរដ្ឋធម្មនុញ្ញដែលបានកំណត់ថាព្រះរាជាណាចក្រកម្ពុជាគឺគោរពទៅតាមលទ្ធិប្រជាធិបតេយ្យសេរីពហុបកហើយស្ថាប័នជាតិសំខាន់មានស្ថាប័នរដ្ឋសភាដែលជាអង្គការនីតិបញ្ញត្តិដ៏ធំរបស់ជាតិគឺប្រសូតចេញពីឆន្ទៈរបស់ប្រជាពលរដ្ឋតាមរយៈការបោះឆ្នោតសកលដែលបានប្រព្រឹត្តជាទៀងទាត់គឺនៅក្នុងរយៈពេល5ឆ្នាំម្ដងរយៈពេលជាង3ទសវត្សរ៍កន្លងទៅនេះរដ្ឋសភាគឺប្រសូតចេញតាមការបោះឆ្នោតរបស់ប្រជាពលរដ្ឋហើយឈានចូលដល់នីតិកាលទី7សម្រាប់ការដឹកនាំបន្តពីឆ្នាំ2023ដល់ឆ្នាំ2028នេះគឺមានគណៈបកនយោបាយធំចំនួន2ដែលទទួលបានអាសនៈនៅក្នុងរដ្ឋសភាដែលមានគណៈបកប្រជាជនកម្ពុជាទទួលបានសម្លេងគាំទ្រយ៉ាងច្រើនលើសលប់ពីសំណាក់ប្រជាពលរដ្ឋជាម្ចាស់ឆ្នោតជាម្ចាស់ជោគវាសនាអនាគតរបស់ប្រទេសជាតិអាចគ្រប់គ្រងអាសនៈនៅក្នុងរដ្ឋសភាបានរហូតទៅដល់120អាសនៈហើយគណៈបកហ៊ុនស៊ិនពេជ្រក៏ទទួលបានអាសនៈចំនួន5អាសនៈនៅក្នុងរដ្ឋសភានីតិកាលទី7នេះដែរទូរទស្សនិកជនជាទីគោរពនិងជាទីមេត្រីនៅពេលនេះព្រះរាជវត្តមានដ៏ខ្ពង់ខ្ពស់ព្រះករុណាព្រះបាទសម្ដេចព្រះបរមនាថព្រះមហាក្សត្រនៃព្រះរាជាណាចក្រកម្ពុជាជាទីគោរពសក្ការៈដ៏ខ្ពង់ខ្ពស់បំផុតស្ដេចយាងដល់សាលប្រជុំនៃវិមានរដ្ឋសភាហើយជាបន្តទៅទៀតនេះសូមគោរពអញ្ជើញទូរទស្សនិកជនតាមដានទស្សនាខ្លឹមសារនិងទិដ្ឋភាពទាំងស្រុងពីពិធីដ៏មានអត្ថន័យជាប្រវត្តិសាស្ត្រសម្រាប់ជាតិកម្ពុជាដែលមានខ្លឹមសារដូចតទៅ
សូមក្រាបថ្វាយបង្គំព្រះករុណាព្រះបរមនាថនរោត្តមសីហមុនីព្រះមហាក្សត្រនៃព្រះរាជាណាចក្រកម្ពុជាជាទីគោរពសក្ការៈដ៏ខ្ពង់ខ្ពស់បំផុតសូមថ្វាយបង្គំនិងគោរពសម្ដេចព្រះអង្គម្ចាស់ឯកឧត្តមលោកជំទាវបេក្ខជនជាប់ឆ្នោតជាតំណាងរាស្ត្រនីតិកាលទី7ទាំងអស់ជាទីគោរពរាប់អានដ៏ឧត្តមឧត្តមទូលព្រះបង្គំជាខ្ញុំ ហេងសំរិនព្រឹទ្ធសមាជិករដ្ឋសភាមានមហាកិត្តិយសដ៏ខ្ពង់ខ្ពស់បំផុតសូមព្រះបរមរាជានុញ្ញាតក្រាបថ្វាយបង្គំនិងក្រាបបង្គំថ្វាយនឹងយាងប្រកាសរណាជាអម្ចាស់ជីវិតលើត្បូងដ៏ឧត្តមដ៏ខ្ពង់ខ្ពស់ដ៏ជាទីគោរពដ៏សក្ការៈដ៏ខ្ពង់ខ្ពស់បំផុតសូមព្រះមេត្តាប្រោសប្រទានព្រះរាជសន្ទរកថាបើកសម័យប្រជុំរដ្ឋសភាដំបូងនៃរដ្ឋសភានីតិកាលទី7សូមស្ដេចយាងសូមអរព្រះរាជគុណ
សម្ដេចអគ្គមហាពញាចក្រីហេងសំរិនសម្ដេចវិបុលសេនាភក្តីសាយឈុំប្រធានព្រឹទ្ធសភាសម្ដេចអគ្គមហាសេនាបតីតេជោហ៊ុនសែនសម្ដេចជាវាវាំងវរៈវៀងជ័យអធិបតីស្រឹងគាគង់សំអល់សម្ដេចក្រឡាហោមសខេងសម្ដេចពិជ័យសេនាទាបាញ់សម្ដេចកតេសង្ឃបណ្ឌិតម៉ែនសំអនឯកឧត្តមកតេទេសភិបាលបណ្ឌិតហ៊ុនម៉ាណែតព្រះអង្គម្ចាស់ឯកឧត្តមលោកជំទាវសមាជិកសមាជិកានៃរដ្ឋសភាដ៏ឧត្តមឧត្តមឯកឧត្តមលោកជំទាវជាឯកអគ្គរដ្ឋទូតឯកអគ្គរដ្ឋទូតនិងភ្ញៀវកិត្តិយសជាតិនិងអន្តរជាតិជាទីមេត្រីថ្ងៃនេះជាឱកាសដ៏មហាវិសេសវិសាលដែលរដ្ឋសភានីតិកាលទី7ប្រារព្ធបើកសម័យប្រជុំដំបូងរបស់ខ្លួនស្របទៅតាមកាលកំណត់របស់រដ្ឋធម្មនុញ្ញនៃព្រះរាជាណាចក្រកម្ពុជាបន្ទាប់ពីតំណាងរាស្ត្រទាំងអស់ត្រូវបានជ្រើសតាំងដោយការបោះឆ្នោតកាលពីថ្ងៃទី23ខែកក្កដាឆ្នាំ2023កន្លងទៅនេះក្នុងឱកាសដ៏ឧត្តមឧត្តមនេះខ្ញុំសូមសម្ដែងនៅក្តីសោមនស្សរីករាយចូលរួមអបអរសាទរពិធីបើកសម័យប្រជុំដំបូងនៃរដ្ឋសភានីតិកាលទី7និងសូមសម្ដែងនៅអំណរសាទរដ៏កក់ក្ដៅជូនចំពោះសមាជិកសមាជិការដ្ឋសភាទាំងអស់ដែលប្រជាពលរដ្ឋបានសម្ដែងឆន្ទៈនិងជំនឿទុកចិត្តតាមរយៈការបោះឆ្នោតជាសកលកន្លងទៅនេះចាប់ពីពេលដែលរដ្ឋសភាបានចាប់បដិសន្ធិជាថ្មីនាឆ្នាំ1993រហូតមកដល់ពេលនេះមានរយៈពេល30ឆ្នាំកន្លងមកហើយដែលកម្ពុជាបានប្រែក្លាយពីការបែកបាក់ជាតិនិងការបែងចែកទឹកដីទៅជាប្រទេសដែលមានសន្តិភាពស្ថិរភាពប្រជាធិបតេយ្យនិងអភិវឌ្ឍគ្រប់វិស័យដែលធ្វើឲ្យប្រជាពលរដ្ឋបានរស់នៅក្រោមដំបូលសន្តិភាពប្រកបដោយក្តីសង្ឃឹមនិងសុខក្សែងខ្សាលរដ្ឋសភាដែលជាអង្គការមានអំណាចនីតិបញ្ញត្តិនិងបន្តបំពេញភារកិច្ចរបស់ខ្លួនដោយមានកំណត់ក្នុងរដ្ឋធម្មនុញ្ញនិងច្បាប់ជាធរមានដើម្បីបន្តនិរន្តរភាពនយោបាយសេដ្ឋកិច្ចសង្គមវប្បធម៌កសាងព្រះរាជាណាចក្រកម្ពុជាជារដ្ឋដ៏រឹងមាំនិងជឿនលឿនដោយផ្អែកលើច្បាប់ធានាការអនុវត្តច្បាប់ដោយស្មើភាពសម្រាប់ប្រជាពលរដ្ឋគ្រប់រូបនិងធានាការពារលើកស្ទួយ សិទ្ធិសេរីភាពគ្រប់បែបយ៉ាងរបស់ប្រជាពលរដ្ឋតំណាងរាស្ត្រក្នុងរដ្ឋសភាជាតំណាងប្រជាជាតិខ្មែរទាំងមូលធ្វើយ៉ាងណាខិតខំប្រឹងប្រែងបន្ថែមទៀតជួយប្រជាពលរដ្ឋឲ្យរស់នៅបានស្មើភាពគ្នាក្នុងជំនឿសាសនាការសិក្សារៀនសូត្រការមានការងារធ្វើសមរម្យទៅតាមកម្លាំងសមត្ថភាពនិងកម្រិតវិជ្ជារបស់ខ្លួនច្បាប់ទាំងឡាយដែលរដ្ឋសភាបានអនុម័តគឺជាឧបករណ៍គតិយុត្តសម្រាប់រាជរដ្ឋាភិបាលអនុវត្តនិងលើកកម្ពស់នីតិរដ្ឋសម្ដៅឲ្យប្រទេសយើងមានក្របខ័ណ្ឌច្បាប់គ្រប់គ្រាន់និងល្អស្របតាមការវិវត្តរីកចម្រើនរបស់សង្គមជាតិខ្ញុំមានជំនឿយ៉ាងមុតមាំថារាជរដ្ឋាភិបាលកម្ពុជាអាណត្តិថ្មីដែលនឹងទទួលការទុកចិត្តពីរដ្ឋសភានិងបំពេញភារកិច្ចតាមគោលនយោបាយបន្តជំរុញកំណើនសេដ្ឋកិច្ចលើកកម្ពស់កម្រិតជីវភាពប្រជាពលរដ្ឋបន្តអភិវឌ្ឍនិងពង្រឹងប្រព័ន្ធការពារសង្គមដែលមានវិសាលភាពគ្របដណ្ដប់ប្រជាពលរដ្ឋគ្រប់រូបទាំងការអភិរក្សនិងអភិវឌ្ឍវប្បធម៌ដោយចីរភាពដើម្បីធានាអត្ថិភាពដ៏រឹងមាំនៃអត្តសញ្ញាណជាតិជំរុញការអភិវឌ្ឍសេដ្ឋកិច្ចសង្គមស្របគ្នានឹងការលើកកម្ពស់សីលធម៌សម្រាប់ភាពសុខដុមនៃសង្គមជាតិដើម្បីសម្រេចភារកិច្ចដ៏ឧត្តមឧត្តមនេះប្រជាជាតិកម្ពុជាត្រូវមានឯកភាពនិងសាមគ្គីភាពជាតិខ្ពស់ដោយឈលលើស្មារតីបង្រួមជាតិនិងប្រកាន់ខ្ជាប់នៅព្រហ្មវិហារធម៌4គឺមេត្តាករុណាមុទិតានិងឧបេក្ខានៅក្នុងឱកាសដ៏ឧត្តមឧត្តមនេះខ្ញុំសូមប្រសិទ្ធពរសូមរដ្ឋសភានីតិកាលទី7មានដំណើរការល្អនិងអនុវត្តទូនីតិរបស់ខ្លួនប្រកបដោយមនសិការទទួលខុសត្រូវដើម្បីទទួលបានជោគជ័យថ្មីថែមទៀតជាឧត្តមប្រយោជន៍រួមជូនជាតិមាតុភូមិនិងប្រជាជាតិយើងទាំងមូលជាទីបញ្ចប់ខ្ញុំសូមជូនពរសម្ដេចអគ្គមហាពញាចក្រីសម្ដេចវិបុលសេនាធិក្តីសម្ដេចអគ្គមហាសេនាបតីតេជោសម្ដេចជាវាវាំងសម្ដេចក្រឡាហោមសម្ដេចពិជ័យសេនាសម្ដេចគតិសង្ហបណ្ឌិតឯកឧត្តមគតិទេសភិបាលបណ្ឌិតនិងព្រះអង្គម្ចាស់ឯកឧត្តមលោកជំទាវទាំងអស់ជាសមាជិកសមាជិកាដ៏ឧត្តមឧត្តមនៃរដ្ឋសភានីតិកាលទី7ព្រមទាំងភ្ញៀវជាតិនិងអន្តរជាតិសូមបានប្រកបតែនឹងព្រះពុទ្ធពរគឺអាយុវណ្ណៈសុខៈពលៈកុំបីឃ្លាតឃ្លានឡើយសូមអរគុណ
So we've just watched King Norodom Sihamoni inaugurate the 7th Legislature of the National Assembly. He has currently meeting up for a photo with all 125 members of the National Assembly who have just been officially inaugurated. We saw there in attendance was current Prime Minister Hun Sen, future Prime Minister Hun Manet, and next to Hun Manet was the new president of the National Assembly, Kon Sodari. She will be the first woman president of the National Assembly, and they're now all lining up for a commemorative photo. You see there, you've got the king up front. The woman next to Hun Manet is Kwan Sodari. She is the now official president of the National Assembly. And next to her, the other woman beside her is Mang Sam On. She is an outgoing minister. So you see the official 7th Legislature of the National Assembly. This is the 7th formation of the National Assembly since Cambodia first held elections in 1993. So they hold General Assembly elections every 5 years. We see now the king is being led out. He gave a speech welcoming all the new members of the National Assembly.
Can we get in the shade, please? I'm going sweaty.
So we see now the king is leaving the National Assembly.
Yeah. Oh, you lost the pin again.
Correct what that have this morning that that's now the membership of the tomorrow is about government.
But then they'll be sworn in at 2 o'clock at the...
The same, but the government to pass through the floor, they will approve to go to sworn in the parliament.
We have just seen King Norodom Sihamoni has gotten back in his car, presumably heading back to the palace. He was seen off by current Prime Minister Hun Sen, members of his cabinet, and future Prime Minister Hun Manet, who is expected to take his new position tomorrow. Today, as the National Assembly convenes, they will be giving a vote of confidence to the new cabinet that Hun Manet has gathered. Only about 6 of the 30 minister positions will be held by the same as the previous administration. So a lot of new faces coming in today. They'll all be up for approval by the National Assembly. There are 125 seats in the National Assembly. 120 of them went to the Cambodian People's Party on July 23rd. The remaining 5 went to Royalist Party Phun Sinpec. So we just saw King Norodom Sihamoni presiding over the opening ceremony for their meeting. This is the first time in 10 years that the king has presided over the opening. The last National Assembly for the 6th Legislature was formed in 2018. The king was not present for that one. But today he went ahead and welcomed all the new members. They played the Cambodian national anthem, and he was seen out with a military band kind of play off, and they've all just seen him off. So 125 lawmakers are at the National Assembly today to commemorate the opening of the 7th Legislature. They'll be the 7th Legislature for 5 years, after which another election will be held for the 8th Legislature. So Cambodia's elections started in 1993. They're held every 5 years, so this will be the 7th time that has happened. Now, when Cambodians go to the polls, they do vote for a party rather than individuals, and it is the party who then nominates the seats in the National Assembly that they have won. The National Assembly is then responsible for approving the new government, including the Prime Minister and the cabinet members. So, watching some historical events in Cambodia today. This will be the first time many of the cabinet positions are seeing new members in decades. Prime Minister Hun Sen himself has held on to his position for 38 years plus, making him one of the longest serving prime ministers in the world. So along with that, many of his ministers he also kept on during that time. So many of them have been in their positions since the 1990s. Only 6 out of the 30 ministers are expected to stay on from Hun Sen's administration and carry on into General Hun Manet's, Dr. Hun Manet's new presidency as prime minister. So one of the people keeping their ministerial position is the Minister of Culture, Bong Sakona. She is one of 3 women who will be in the cabinet who will be in Hun Manet's cabinet coming up. The other 2 are the Minister of Commerce. So the new Minister of Commerce is the daughter of the former Minister of Commerce, and the Minister for Women's Affairs is also a woman. So that's 3 women in a cabinet of 30. This year we're also seeing the first president of the National Assembly be a woman. So the National Assembly will be presided over by Kon Sundari, who we've seen today mostly beside future Prime Minister Hun Manet, who is expected to take over his new position tomorrow. So the new 7th National Assembly has been officially inaugurated with 120 CPP members and 5 members from the Royalist Phun Sinpec party. This is the first time in 5 years that a party other than the CPP has won seats in the National Assembly. Since 2018, the Cambodian People's Party has held all 125 seats. So today, future Prime Minister Hun Manet is going to present his new cabinet with his new ministers for approval from the National Assembly. Now, many of the new ministers are children themselves of outgoing ministers and officials. Of the 10 deputy prime ministers, only 1 will be remaining from the former administration. Meanwhile, only 6 out of 30 ministers are accepted to keep their positions today. Many of the outgoing ministers have been offered seats as members of parliament for the National Assembly to make room for the next generation. So having been chosen by the CPP as the next prime minister back in 2021, Dr. Hun Manet is expected to begin his term as prime minister tomorrow. Today is mostly about confirming the new cabinet, appointing the new president, first and second vice presidents of the National Assembly. So we will now be heading back to footage from the first meeting of the 7th National Assembly, and we will turn it over to them. Thank you for watching.